What's going on, everybody, and welcome to a Good Vibes Gaming discussion. I'm your host for today, Ash Paulson, and I am joined by my very good friend and fellow content creator, AntDude, to talk about our impressions of Mina the Hollower from PAX East 2023. Ant, how's it going, man?
Doing good. How are you doing?
I am great. I'm getting to record a discussion with you. How could I possibly complain? It's great.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, man, happy to. And so you and I were both at PAX East just about a week ago now, week and a half. And
yeah, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy how fast time goes.
Yeah.
And among the various indie games we played on the show floor is, of course, one of the ones I think we are both most excited about, which is the latest offering from Yacht Club Games, Mina the Hollower. And it is decidedly different in tone and overall gameplay direction than, of course, what they're best known for, which is Shovel Knight. Mina, if you've already seen it, it's obviously not a 2D platformer. It is it's kind of a cross. It's a top-down game that evokes Link's Awakening, but also has mechanics of, like, Castlevania and even some Souls-like difficulty stuff, which we'll get into. But, so I guess to start, Ant, you and I played the same demo, and I believe we both made it through the entire demo, right? And the boss fight?
I didn't get to beat the boss. I was really bad at the boss, which I was very embarrassed by, but I'm assuming that's the end of the demo.
It is. So I died once to the boss, but I was able to ultimately beat it thanks to the axe sub-weapon, really, because it has that splash damage when you, like, throw the axe in an arc. Yeah. So, well, I guess let's start at the beginning then. So, basically, this is a 15 to 30-minute demo that takes you through one of the game's dungeons. It's essentially a dungeon, giving you a feel for the combat and such, but at the very start, you have to choose between one of three weapons. And this is actually something that was different and updated from the original demo. So you have the Night Star, which is your classic Castlevania-esque whip. Then you have this, like, giant hammer called the Blast Strike Maul. And then you've got daggers, like a pair of twin daggers called Whisper and Vesper. And you can switch between them at checkpoints during the game. But what did you go with?
Yeah, so I for all intents and purposes, this demo was basically very similar to the demo that's been existing, just except for the new weapons. So I was very excited to try out both. I went with the swords, or the daggers.
Okay.
I was able to work with those, because I tried the hammer. I was trash.
Same.
I am not good with these, like, slow build-up with their attack. It does hit harder, but I am terrible with timing that. So a faster dagger was definitely my speed. Couldn't beat the boss. That I'm, again, embarrassed by that, but yeah, the daggers were really fun.
Well, and that actually is what I ended up going with, too. So the first time I played this demo, I think it was PAX West last year, I went with the Night Star, and that was all that was available, of course, in that demo. So I went with the whip, and man, I had the experience there that it sounds like you had here at PAX East, because I was like, oh man, I played Link's Awakening and Oracle of Ages and Seasons. I got this. I know exactly what's going on here. And this game kicked my ass.
Yes.
And it is, if you're going into it expecting a Link's Awakening, maybe reset those expectations, because while there are some similar mechanics, this game is way harder than anything in Link's Awakening or the Oracle games.
Yeah, I think the mobility is the big thing to really get used to, because upon first glance, yes, it's very much trying to be a Game Boy Color Zelda game, which is a great art style, great aesthetic, of course, but like one of the things that always stuck out to me when I was first playing, I was like, man, I really wish there was a run button. But once you really get a grasp of the digging mechanic, where you're just constantly just swimming through the ground, it does challenge things, because your mind wants it to be one way, but you have to learn this new way, and it takes a while to get into that flow, but when you do, it's really good. But then the enemies, then they will kick your ass, and it's such a well-balanced game that, like, they definitely were taking their time with making sure every aspect of the dungeon that we played through was incredibly polished.
Absolutely, yeah. I was really surprised when I found out that, Mina does have a default jump, and it feels for all the world like the Rock's Feather in Link's Awakening. Yeah. And it's good enough, but then there were a couple of pits later on in the dungeon that I could not figure out how to cross. And, of course, one of the guys from Yacht Club was there with me, kind of giving me help if I needed it. And he kind of chimed in. He's like, try, you know how you move faster when you're burrowing? Try, burrowing and then coming up right before the pit and see what happens. And, of course, that gives you a boosted jump, and you can cross wider gaps, and it's little things like that that really make the gameplay design in this game stand out. And the burrowing mechanic in general is just so smartly implemented because, as we said, it makes you faster, and it does protect you from enemies, but you can only remain burrowed for a short time, and you really have to think about how you're going to use that in concert with everything else you can do. And I found the enemies in particular to be incredibly aggressive and really require some thought in how you approach them. It sounds like you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think part of it is because the health mechanic is unique. I couldn't tell you of another game that had a health mechanic as it does, where you attack more enemies to build up, like, I don't even know what the verbiage of the game is, to build up this potential for a health potion to fill up. And then if you attack enough, this yellow bar goes up, then you take a potion, that part fills up, but if you take damage, that yellow bar goes down. It's a unique risk-reward system that I have never seen before in a health system, and that on top of the difficult enemies was like, oh, do I try to nail some more attacks and so my health goes up a little bit more? Oh, and then I died. It's a very unique balance there.
You know, I might be able to offer a pretty accurate comparison here, and I think what they called it was yellow health, as opposed to red health, which is your actual health, and then you, as you said, you could build up this yellow health that you can then restore if you don't get hit in the interim. And what it reminds me of, actually, is Streets of Rage 4, where you can use special abilities, like in the original Streets of Rage games, using special moves, like in most beat-em-ups, just drains your health, right? But in Streets of Rage 4, to kind of make it so people want to use those special moves more, using special moves actually just depletes your life bar with yellow health, and the more you use them, the more yellow health you have, and if you get hit, you lose all the yellow health that you've accrued or spent, essentially, and go down to whatever level of life that you spent on yellow health. But if you start landing regular attacks, that little health starts increasing bit by bit, and you can actually increase it all the way back to what your health was before you even started using the specials. So it's kind of like that, I think.
Okay, yeah, that sounds fair.
Yeah. So another game that I felt was interesting that this game has a little bit of similarities to is Zelda 2 of all games, because you've got this experience system essentially where so Mina can smash and cut down all the different objects in the environment, much like a Zelda game, and among other collectibles you get bones, and bones are used are basically spent to level up when you have enough of them. And one of my favorite details about this game is that when you get enough bones, this giant text flashes on screen saying "Bone up."
Bone up.
It's so good. It has strong shine get energy.
Very much so.
Yeah, and that is so Yacht Club. And so how did you go about leveling up Mina for you? What did you prioritize?
I usually, whenever I have the option, I tend to go with DPS, my damage per second, just to try to really maximize being as heavy hitting as I can, especially in a demo. I think I feel myself, now that I was just getting completely destroyed in this demo by that boss, and being assured by the people who were showing the game off at Yacht Club saying, yeah, this game's gonna be hard. I think when the time comes for the final game, I'm going to be doing this knife's edge of also doing defense. Yeah. I don't remember what the other stats were, actually.
I'm looking at a screenshot right now, and I can't remember offhand, but I believe it's strength, defense, and I think it's bone, like you can get more bones at once, like increasing
that's fair, like a bigger wallet.
Like a bigger wallet, and then also, I think either items or sub-weapons. Either you can improve your potions, or you can improve I think it's your sub-weapons, and I think is what it is, yeah. And so, in a nod to Castlevania, kind of as I mentioned earlier, there are sub-weapons, and I don't know about you, but I found those sub-weapons to be, like, this isn't the kind of game where you can be like, I'm just going to use my default attacks and brute force my way through. I really had to use those sub-weapons in a smart way to get through some of the tougher enemies.
Yeah, required. Especially the axe with the shock damage it puts out, like, required. Because, yes, the same idea. In Castlevania, you would get the sub-weapons and be like, I'm going to try to challenge myself. I can do this. But no.
Yeah.
I'm sure someone obviously is going to become really good at this, and they'll do damageless runs and whatnot, but man, casual, I thought I was good. I've been playing a lot of Game Boy Zelda just in my free time, so I thought I had a decent idea, but no, not whatsoever. Those are requirements, and they are a damn good addition.
Right, for sure. And in your defense, I leveled up my defense, I believe, twice during my playthrough. So one of the reasons I beat the boss, or maybe the only reason I beat the boss and you didn't, was because I had some more hits I could take. That might be the only reason. But yeah, like you said, the axe subweapon specifically, that's what I went with, and it's very similar to Castlevania. You throw it in an arc, but as you said, when it lands, it does this splash shockwave damage, and that was instrumental in taking care of enemies that were just too tough to take on, close range, and of course also for the boss. So yeah, this is definitely a game where you have to pay attention to and really use all the tools at your disposal to succeed. And that's not to say there aren't things that could possibly make the game easier, though. There are trinkets that you can collect, which are essentially accessories, right? They grant you passive buffs for as long as you have them equipped, and I think you can equip 2 at once, is that correct?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, and I think, if I remember correctly, the Yacht Club folks told me you'd be able to equip more later on, so that might be a way to kind of lower the difficulty a little bit if you're having a hard time. But yeah, well, anything else you want to, like, anything that stood out to you about this demo that you want to talk about?
So like I said before, it's not really unfortunate, but this demo was basically the same thing as the demo from before. Right. It's not a problem because this game is going to be really good. Just in terms of this pack specific build, it was mostly just the weapons, and it's going to be like cool. Whatever weapon you drive with, it's just cool that that's going to be a thing. One of the things that I love about Yacht Club with Shovel Knight and clearly with here is they have a really good way to implement a bunch of systems in these lots of different ways, on top of combining these elements from other games. Like, they very clearly wear their influences on their sleeve, but in a package that is very much its own. Like, the aesthetic, the darker, creepy aesthetic is, I love that with a passion. Mina is a great character with a great design. Yeah. It's so good. The soundtrack is so good. I believe it's a Yuzo Koshiro. Am I remembering that correctly?
No, I think it's Jake Vert Kaufman who's doing.
Oh, is it? I saw something about Yuzo Koshiro, but
maybe he's contributing guest tracks. But I thought it was Jake Kaufman.
I mean, I'd believe that too because the soundtrack's really good.
Yeah.
All the characters that you interact with are great. It's just, man, this is going to be a really great game. Even though the demo was the same. Yacht Club at full force, like when this game was first shown off, I was a little skeptical because everyone had their own thoughts about it being a Shovel Knight sequel developed in-house, but the more I played this, the more it really feels like Yacht Club has a specific image, and this definitely falls in line with that.
Absolutely, and I'm actually jealous because I am dying to hear the soundtrack, but, it's a crowded, busy, loud show floor, and so
sure.
I don't know how you did it, but I had a private appointment, but like in their little booth where they closed the door, and I still couldn't hear it very well because of all the noise. So how were you using headphones, or how did that work?
No, it was a private one, but I think they just maybe had it louder that I can hear it, but also I did play the original demo so often, a lot of it just stuck with me. So when I was hearing some of those notes again, that song just came back. Like the dungeon theme is really nice. It's going to be a pleasant soundtrack, all things considered. Very different than what Shovel Knight was, obviously, but still very pleasant on the ears.
Going to be another, banging chiptune soundtrack, I assume.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things where like you can tell right off the bat this is going to be one of the best indie games of the year. And even if the demo wasn't new, it didn't need to reinforce that. This game is going to be fantastic.
Absolutely. And I did look it up, by the way, and you are right. It is, well, we are both right. It's Jake Kaufman with Yuzo Koshiro, which, holy crap, that's amazing. That is a dream team for the ages there, so that's amazing. Just a couple of other things, I guess, to wrap up before we are done here. One thing about the weapons that I found interesting is that each weapon has a kind of sub-use or an extra use where you can charge it up. And right. So, like, I don't know what that does in the whip's case, but in the hammer's case, it does this crazy strong attack that, like, does shockwave, like, splash damage. But if you get hit at any point during that charge, you lose the charge, kind of like, various Mega Man games. But the daggers are interesting because if you charge them, you can actually, throw one of them. Right. You have to be careful where you throw it, because if you throw it in a place where you can't then retrieve it, you won't get it back until you proceed to the next screen. So that's another thing that really makes you think. Another risk-reward system. Yeah, that really makes you think about how you fight these enemies and how you approach every encounter. And some of these enemies, man, are so aggressive
There's I don't know names, obviously, but like just the big werewolf dude that will just swipe at you.
Oh my
and
God.
He like goes the entire screen almost in terms of distance, and he does a lot of damage.
Yeah.
It's crazy. And then you got like the weird dudes that are just a torso and top half.
I love
and you're like,
those.
oh, okay, cool, that guy's kind of creepy. And then you find leg enemies later on. You're like, oh, those guys are kind of creepy too. And then they have both of them combined, and you have the top half and the bottom half. Oh my God. It's and then you got the enemies that are like the Phantos, I think.
Oh my God, they were like
Oh my
Phantoses.
God.
Yeah, they were crazy because there were these statues that you had to carry. They were like these cursed, broken statues where you have to carry their head across multiple rooms to reunite them with their bodies. But the whole time you're carrying the head, this spirit enemy, like a Phantos, is following you, and you can't kill it. You just have to avoid it, and it's intense. And how about those incredibly annoying mage enemies that resurrect?
Yep, I was just
other
thinking,
enemies on the screen. Oh, they're awful.
Yep.
And and as Mina doesn't really get a bunch of iframes either, so even if you just try to tank the damage and make it through, these enemies are so aggressive that just doesn't work in my experience.
That's why I died a lot.
Yeah.
That boss has a second phase that I couldn't do nothing with that.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. I was thinking. Yeah. When I first fought that boss, I'm like, oh, you know what? I did pretty well. That wasn't that bad. And then this crazy transformation happens, and I'm like, oh crap. What was I thinking?
That also, before I forget, this also has the same mechanic that Shovel Knight has and other games have, where if you die, you lose a bunch of stuff, but there's the orb that'll pop out of you, so you're able to go and retrieve it if you get to it without dying. So that's another good mechanic.
Another, Souls-esque mechanic, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, kind of as you said, just to bring it all the way back around, there are, Yacht Club are known for these incredibly minute details that have such a polishing experience on the gameplay as a whole. And, we've already talked about a bunch of those, but like another one, going back to those dagger weapons, if you have both daggers, you attack faster, and you can do more damage per second. But if you throw one, maybe that's going to work out for you in terms of a long-term attack, but now Mina attacks half as fast, or, twice as slowly, I guess. So you really have, it's all so much risk and reward, and there are so many little details in the environment that you need to look for if you want to find secrets, especially with the burrowing mechanic. If you look closely, there are certain areas where it looks like you can burrow underneath the wall, and if you think that you see something that you can do, chances are you can do it. There are so many cool little secrets in this game to find.
Yeah, cracks in the walls, these trees you gotta go behind. Things are a lot more subtle than I thought that they would be, but in a way that's not like you have to comb every single nook and cranny. It's just if you really gotta pay attention to the environment.
Right, absolutely. And I guess the one other thing I want to mention before we wrap up here is I am a stickler for good writing, and especially copy editing and like polished writing. And Yacht Club, of course, they killed it with Shovel Knight and are known for that. And that is fully carried over here into Mina. The writing is so clever, so funny, so off the wall, and just so polished. And did you kind of have that experience too?
So sadly, in the demo that I played, we kind of just pushed through the gameplay, because I did share the demo space with someone else. So we were just trying to experience the gameplay part, since that was the new part. That was what was emphasized to us by the people showing it off.
Makes sense.
But from what I remember, I have no reason to doubt it.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I went out of my way to talk to every NPC I could, and actually, the main dungeon you go into in this demo, there's a whole side quest you can do. Actually, 2 whole side quests you could do involving 2 hidden NPCs that you wouldn't find if you're not really looking in every nook and cranny and like looking out for those little environmental cues. And I only found them, to be fair, because I had a couple of things pointed out to me. So each of these dungeons, I was told, are going to have kind of these multiple little side quests that you can do within them, but you have to be looking out for them and where they might be. So there's so much to this game, and it really, there's so much depth here that may not come across if you're just looking at a trailer or you're watching the footage that's playing right now in this video. But I think, Ant, you and I can agree that we are both incredibly excited for this game, yeah?
Yeah, of course. And we are basing a lot of stuff on assumption of just how many dungeons there'll be. Now that there's 2 more weapons, who knows how many more weapons there'll be. But the thing is, with Yacht Club having as much time, because man, I can't imagine how long this game's been in development for. It very much comes off as a game that's had a lot of development time put into it. So whenever this game comes out, it's going to be polished to all hell. There's going to be at least a dozen different mechanics that are working, interweaving with each other in brilliant ways. The one dungeon that we got to go through was pretty standard, outside of like the Phantos thing being like one of the main gimmicks and burrowing under like spiky tubes, but I can only imagine like some of the other stuff that they've come up with, because that burrowing mechanic, I really feel is going to be the thing that's going to have a lot of people go, oh, okay, I get it now. So yeah, I'm very excited.
I'm looking forward to seeing how speedrunners use the burrowing mechanic too.
It's going to be insane.
It really is.
It's going to be insane.
Yeah, I don't know, it definitely is. And yeah, I'm super excited. Going back to what you were talking about, you know, how many more weapons will there be and such. I did notice on the trinkets menu, there are only like 3 or 4 trinkets you can use in the demo, but there were like 3 whole other rows of unfilled in trinkets. So it seems like there's going to be quite a lot to this game when all is said and done.
Absolutely. It's going to be a really chunky Zelda-like game. I expect, I couldn't even tell you how many dungeons, but there's going to be a lot to this. I imagine side quests are going to be crazy. That's something that they managed to do really good with, like Shovel Knight King of Cards, with the whole card game in there. So I fully expect these quirky little extras that you can be pulling off. It's going to be really good.
It is, and if we know anything about Yacht Club, as you kind of just touched on just now, it is that they will not release it till they get it fully right. They are so all about polish, and you know, as to kind of go off of that, I did ask about if they have a potential release period in mind, and they still won't commit to 2023 even. It may be, I probably, you know, I don't see it being more than early next year, but they definitely would not commit to this year, so they're going to take time to get it right.
Yep, I asked the same thing, got the same answer.
Yep, cool. Well, there you go. Well then, all right, I think we're about ready to wrap up. Anything else you want to mention?
This game's going to be good. Don't sleep on it. Yacht Club took a while to get their next game, but man, it's going to be worth it.
All right, completely agree. And Ant, thank you so much, man, for being on this discussion with me.
And thanks for having me.
Hey, always my pleasure. You know, you're always an eternal friend to Good Vibes Gaming. You know that.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, all right, that's about it for us here, so thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please, of course, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. It really helps. Also, just so you know, we do have a Patreon, patreon.com/gvgaming. So if you like what we do here, please do consider supporting us over on Patreon. We offer a ton of cool perks to people who support us at various tiers. But either way, we love you just for watching this video all the same, and we will see you next time. Bye!
Bye!